I want to say, abuse and there's a difference between like addiction and abuse, and there's different levels of it, and so a lot of it has to do with the fact that they can't, they'll quit their job, they won't go, they'll stay home all day, spending all their money, and like, you know, their kids are starving and they're spending all their money on drugs and on things like that. You see it, it's a lot of the movies and things like that, and it is in our community, so you have to keep an eye for it. And but it's usually not something that you can, it's well hidden, because it takes over their lives. You know, affects their daily functioning. Like I said, all of these will affect daily functioning. And the last category is personality disorders. And that is interesting because it's hard to work with somebody with a personality disorder in the sense of saying, you know, it interferes with functioning in their daily life, but they just have very extreme and inflexible personality traits. And you can know it. Like if I talked about like somebody who has a narcissistic personality, you'd be like, oh, I know exactly somebody like that. But that's somebody that has a personality disorder. It's not something that you typically would say this person really needs to be in counseling. Because sometimes you just have to learn to live with it, or they have to learn how to deal with these traits in their lives. They sometimes can't even change it, because if a counselor can't change it, it's really tough to work with somebody with a personality disorder. Borderline is someone that is typically, you hear a lot about borderline personality disorder. And borderline personality disorder is someone that has just these impulsivities, and it's someone, almost everybody knows somebody who's borderline, because it's a love-hate relationship. They'll love you one second, they'll hate you the next second. And you'd be like, you know, I don't understand what's going on. Like this happens all the time with clients, where they'll come in and they'll be your best friend, and you're telling your coworkers about them. You're like, oh my God, this is the best client. They open up so much, and all of a sudden next week they're suicidal and they're calling you. They hate you. You're not there for me. I need you here. I called you on the emergency line. You didn't come to the hospital. It doesn't matter if it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. Nothing matters. They hate you now. They don't want to see you. They want another counselor. So often borderline patients are some ones that jump from counselor, 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 and a lot of times the counselors kind of auction them off amongst themselves. And like we usually, you know, like there's only so many that you give to an intern, because we're like, oh, I don't want them, give them to the intern, because they're so difficult to work with, because they can hate you in an instant. But personality disorders, like I said, it's a little bit, it's not, you'll find them in your groups, I think, in many different aspects. There's people that have paranoid personality disorders, and there's obsessive compulsive personality disorders, antisocial personality disorders, but it's extreme when they need to see counseling. And a lot of them have just traits of, like, I could say, I'm like, oh, I have some OCD traits. And I know I do. Like, I've looked at the list, and I'm like, oh, look at me. Like, check. And then I'm like, but I don't, you know, fulfill enough criteria to have to go see counselor. You know, like, I know myself. Like, I'll check. But that's it. A lot of people have, like, some sort of trait, like, personality disorders, like, traits of it.
So, there really isn't, like, one thing that can trigger these disorders, right? Like just.
Oh no, of course there is. Personality disorders are usually from,
like something that happened in your life, or
or
is it like something
I can tell you what I
brain,
think,
or like,
I can tell you what I think. I can tell you that there's a lot of different, there's many theories about all these disorders and what triggers them.
Yeah.
There's a medical model, which I'm
That's
sure that's what you follow, and I follow a totally different model, which is a lot about history and about you know, there's a lot of sexual and violence, domestic violence abuse, and that triggers a lot of these anxiety disorders and a lot of these depressive disorders and personality.
But it's not necessarily
disorders.
like a brain function. Like
it could. Oh no, of course. I think.
Like, is there a medical analysis?
Personally, like from all the stuff that I've learned psychiatric wise,
yeah.
like the psychosis diseases you talked about, schizophrenia, bipolar, and those things, those are major depressive disorder. I think those are
Yes.
something's wrong with the chemicals in your brain aren't working the way
Okay,
they should.
so there.
Personality disorders seem to be more environmental, and you see people in families kind of all have a similar thing. Like there's a really famous one, like splitting. Right? We
Yeah.
talked about a little bit. Like
Yeah.
this happens. Like the counselor is the best person in the world. My hero, and I hate everybody else is evil. So it's either you're evil or you're like
not.
the man, right? And there's nothing in between. And it switches, like I said, or there's like histrionic personality disorder, which is like a lot of manipulative, even like sexual advances, and they try to like, oh, you're the best, you're the best person ever. Like very manipulative that way.
There's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of like, but you can tell.
Yeah.
It's
I know
when
it's,
somebody's
like,
like a little bit
obvious,
off like
but,
that, you're like, yeah, but it's not something that, like I said, I've seen a lot of people that fulfill all the criteria that would fall under a diagnosis for personality disorder that don't seek treatment. Because they found the spouse that accepts it in their lives and they make it work within their business. So it impedes on their daily functioning, but a lot of them make it work a little bit differently versus a psychosis or, extreme anxiety and things like that.
The hardest part about personality disorders is they're the ones who are the farthest from believing that they have a problem.
Yes.
So they're the ones who will never admit that they have an issue. Like OCD people will usually say, I don't know why I do this, but I have to. Like I have to do it. I have to lock the door 6 times because I know it's silly, but I have to do it. But these people are kind of a little more difficult.
And also there's a difference between obsessive compulsive disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So
That personality one is more severe.
no,
Oh,
the one because the personality disorder it's like they kind of function.
yeah.
It can actually benefit them even in some things.
Yeah, like someone who has OCD without personality disorder. I've had a client that kept making wudu over and over again, and it would be, to the point where like they'd be like, oh, hold on, I think like stepping out of the bathroom, they're like, I have to redo it, and they're going back because they miscounted and they want to make sure they did things a certain way, and like I didn't rub around my elbows and I didn't do 3 exact times and I only came up to this part, and then it's really, it's impedes on their functioning. Like you see it, like it's not, you can't mistake it. Where if I say I have a little bit of a personality disorder with like obsessive compulsion, I would say like certain things in my life fall in this category.